Great. Welcome, welcome. I see folks coming in. Put into the chat where you're all coming from. This is LTX Live, going live straight from, I think at this point, 3 countries. We got folks in the DR, Italy, and then Marlon and I in the US. So this is a real international conversation that we'll be having, which I think it's really timely to the topic that we have. So as folks are coming in, feel free to put in the chat. Great. We have folks in Miami, the Midwest. Excellent. Great. So we'll start recording. I think we're all good to go. Welcome to you all. My name's Lily Beth Genghis. I'm the co-founder for LTX Connect. And for the folks who may be new to LTX Connect, we're really working on creating a platform for the Latina community that brings in cultura, innovation, that brings in community, and being able to really look at how do we do this in multimedia ways. So this is one of the ways that we are able to connect with you all, besides the newsletter, the webinars, the in-person activations, and we have lots of great updates to share with you, but we'll save them for the end. Today here we are focused on diving into the conversation that we've seen really take the headlines for the past year, right? And even longer, as we think about the impact that artificial intelligence is having on the entertainment and all types of media, right? And so we have expert speakers today that will be sharing from their perspective. What are some of the opportunities? What are some of the challenges? What do we specifically as a Latina community need to be aware of, as far as, are there opportunities that can really help us create new businesses? Are there concerns, trade-offs, especially as we look at the impact of labor and IP? And being able to see how can we also change the longstanding lack of representation of the Latino community in front and behind the screen. So what is this moment? And so we have LTX Live as an opportunity for us to come together to discuss what are the potential moonshots specifically that AI could bring, and what's our role as a community to not just be bystanding, but be able to help shape it, develop it, create it, and be able to make it be in a way that could be utilized for good. And many questions on that, because we'll dive into some of those conversations. But as you all have seen, just looking at the Black Mirror episode, how many of you all remember? Put into the chat if you all saw the episode. And of course, had to be a Latina that would bring in the conversation and bring it in a raw format. So just thinking about the impact of just having Salma Hayek be the phase that started this conversation. And just a few weeks later, this past few weeks, we saw that fiction become actual reality as Scarlett Johansson took on and sued OpenAI for potential use of her voice without her permission. In this weird way, we have met that show in reality. But what does this really mean? And what are the concerns? What, especially if you're a creator, if you are somebody who's in the space, it's, what are some of your concerns? What are also some of the legal issues that we should be discussing, and being able to also use it as a way for us to protect each other? So with that said, we have an amazing set of experts. I'm going to let themselves introduce as we go through it. So why don't we start? I'll just share just one quick facts from the McKinsey report, just to also help provide additional context, where the population of the Latinos in the U.S. is 62 million plus and growing. We have a potential $3 trillion of GDP that we contribute directly to the economy. And we're also some of the folks the communities that continue to uplift Hollywood, being able, with the way we show up for films. We're one of the largest streamers across different platforms. We're also some of the more unique creators on some of the different platforms as well through social media. But yet, when we look at what are some of the content and who gets to produce it, we're still less than 5% on screen and off screen, and as well as executive leaders. And as we are in this moment where this type of technology is directly impacting all the different business models, what is the opportunity here? Could AI bring a needed disruption to this industry, to the value chain? And if so, what are those trade-offs? What are those opportunities? How do we shape that? So that'll be part of that's the framing of the conversation that we have for today. And to get us officially in and started, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our expert panels. And we'll start with Nora Benavides. If you can share a little bit of your background, and especially what is your role at the intersection of AI and media?
Thank you so much, Lily. Hola, it's so wonderful to be here with all of you. I am coming to you from Italy on a vacation. The only person I said yes to was Lily Gangas because I said I have to be there no matter what. So bear with me if anything glitches. I think we're going to be good, but let me know. It's wonderful to be here with all of you. I'm Nora Benavides. I am a civil rights and free speech attorney. And I often say I work at the intersection of law, tech, and democracy. I'm actually from Los Angeles, though, and my entire family works in some way in the entertainment industry, and whether it's as actors or writers or people in sound and music, it's a very funny thing that I didn't take that path. I really grew up around Hollywood people, so I have some odd, interesting background that ties to the entertainment industry on that side. But I became a civil rights lawyer, and I now serve as senior counsel and director of digital justice and civil rights at the nonprofit Free Press. I hope I can offer a little bit of a unique perspective here today, because it doesn't quite sound from that bio like I work on media issues, but we do. And Free Press is a nonprofit that works at the intersection of media and technology. We focus on finding ways to give people around the United States local and robust coverage in their local news. We also work on internet connectivity, and I run our democracy and technology initiatives. And so that really looks like finding ways to blunt the spread of disinformation, hate, manipulation online. I work a little bit with tech companies, a little bit with Congress and the White House, but at the forefront of everything I do, I am always thinking about how do we diminish the kinds of manipulation tactics that create barriers for people to engage with each other and with democracy. So I hope to engage with all of you, and it's just wonderful to be here. Thanks, Lily.
Thank you so much, Nora, and for sharing your context of being around all these different creators and creatives. And we have a specific creator and creative, Marlon, who can share a little bit more about his background and also just share, Marlon, some of the projects they've been working so folks can get a little bit more context.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Lily. This is an amazing time that we're in now because for anybody that has been working with creative communities, you kind of find yourself at a moment where we have a lot of decisions to make and a lot of advocacy for the human qualities and how we'll remain a valuable human resource in the future, let's just say. But yeah, my current role at this time, I'm working with Ericsson on a language translation application called Link AI that allows people to basically change the language of their speaking on video. Soon will be in real time. So imagine if I didn't speak English and I only spoke Turkish or something, and I was able to just change my voice to English, and it would look and sound like me, but just in a different language. This is the latest that I've been working on. But prior to that, I worked in the spaces of computer vision, hardware technology. We got to remember that AI is going to be a very multimodal technology that is going to incorporate audio, video, speech, text, and all of those things. And I work with a lot of creative technologists in that space, doing partnerships. And I've seen sort of the swell of tools that are being utilized for doing this type of work. A lot of AI combination. So creators are really inspiring people because they will take this app, that app, and then they'll make whatever it is that they're trying to make using all these tools. Prior to that, I was also I was at the Grammy Awards. I was a genre manager there in the awards department, and we did some very interesting initial explorations into AI and what that would mean for the music industry. Just across the board from tools to produce music to streaming, and some very interesting things came out of that as well. That led to some important changes. One of those being the fact that there's a growing number of people that are listening to music that's in a language other than English. And this was a really, really big point that led us to the creation of an African category, African performance category, and also just kind of a reframing of what it meant to be like a global artist, kind of departing from the old like world music tropes and the folklorism and that kind of thing, to something that was more appropriate for the times. And this was all based on using streaming data and really kind of like making it obvious that the algorithms that are the recommendation engines for listeners are clearly responsible for some of these viral like global artists that we're seeing today. But anyways, yeah, just very excited to be here, and yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Marlon. And as you were sharing your introduction, the part that, a lot of the conversations that are being had, especially is IP and licensing. And to help us provide context, we have Pablo Segarra. Pablo, if you can do an introduction about the work that you're doing and also how you're working on the Web3 experiences, right? Because I think now we're really looking at the intersection of all these different technologies. And what is the law? What's happening here? Tell us, Pablo, how you approach this work.
I don't know. Have a good night. I see everybody later. No, so yeah, Pablo Segarra, thank you, Lily. Appreciate it. Thank you for having me on. Quick note, LTX a few years ago was the company that I wanted to build. So much kudos to you. Yes, Pablo Segarra, I'm a retired police officer from New York. Right now, I'm the founder of a firm that I created called sidehustle.law. An attorney working in the intellectual property space mostly. I focus on a lot of entrepreneurs at that early stage when they have an idea. I say, call me before you put anything down on paper so we can work through it. And for those of you that don't know, over 50% of millennials, over 70% of Generation Z want or have a side hustle. And for those of you that don't know, most of the new entrepreneurs in the United States happen to be Latino. So there's as to why I called my firm what I did. I work a lot in the technology sector as well, too. My first real job as a lawyer was working with a company called Black Asset during the early NFT craze. And I had to figure out how to negotiate and pay Muhammad Ali's estate for their NFT and get it on the blockchain. So to talk about a lot for a young attorney. And we're at this really interesting intersection of the development of Web3 and kind of like the next stages as to what we want it to really be, what it will be. And then you mix that in with artificial intelligence. And so, yes, there's a lot there to figure out. I'm also on the New York State Bar Association's task force for emerging digital finance. We have educated at this point about up to 500 to 600 like international attorneys on emerging technology, from artificial intelligence to AI, from artificial intelligence, the blockchain, and Web3. So happy to be here. I'm in my home in Dominican Republic right now, as you can see from the sun. We, I think, are all pretty remote, and I don't ever want to go into an office. That's just my opinion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pablo. And I think we're all in this new hybrid, right, with the reality. And I think that also just brings up so much of the different ways of approaching, especially as we're thinking about not just entertainment, but the experiences, right? Like, to what end is all of this take place, and why? And I think in Nora, this is a part where I think if you can help us just provide the context also. I know that in the past we have participated with Nalit to have a conversation on specifically what are some of the issues, right, that we're seeing from your background that are impacting the entertainment and media industry when it looks at digital rights, privacy, legal, labor, et cetera. So can you just give us a little bit, run it back to the headline that, AI is a wild card, and a lot of, as we recall, the Hollywood strikes, right? And what specifically has been unsettling? Can you just share a little bit of your analysis from that perspective?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I was thinking about what to talk about here because most of my job is, I would say, in the apocalypse arena, not in the joyful arena. And so I was trying to think about how to frame this question, or at least my answer. I'm not a media and certainly not an entertainment industry expert in the sense like Pablo and Marlon are. But I know as a consumer what I experienced over the last many years. And I think we've really seen a creative revolution. As a consumer, I remember the first time I saw Avatar and the conversation that was really sparked around that. I'm sure there are better examples that Marlon can talk about, and I hope you'll get into it, Marlon, very elegantly smiling at me. But I remember that sort of just explosion of excitement around the technology, what CGI could do to make us feel like something was real. It was so magical. And so when I think about AI, I have a lot of concerns, and we can talk about that. But the sort of positive side of the coin is that this creative revolution is allowing people to create worlds and imagination at a scale and speed that we've really not seen. It's inspiring, it's exciting, it's immersive. It's also very equity oriented. More and more people have access to tools that can make them easily create songs. The songs are maybe not great quality, but you can fool around with any number of apps now. Give that app a snippet of either an image or a video or a sound, and it can create more content. That's really exciting. However, and this is where my own work comes in, I think, there's sort of a more sordid underbelly here, and that is what all of this new field is doing to the world. And I think there's a concern about the sheer energy power that AI is taking. I just read an article that the proposals that Ireland, for example, is making to roll out its platform and AI tools are so big that it will take up more than all of the current energy Ireland has. We have platforms like Meta that have major headquarters in Ireland and other platforms. So there's just an energy concern, but there's also the human concern. And my work is really focused on how what happens online is the forefront of our civil rights. We often think that we are really not giving anything up when we go on our phones or our computers. We love when we give out information for platforms to target us because it honestly makes our experiences easier. If a certain platform knows that we like a brand here on, from Target, or shoes that we purchased from Amazon, that can tailor our experiences in ways that we might enjoy. But what's ultimately happening is that technology is harvesting our data. It's exploiting that. And for those that are Latinos, I think most of the people here, there's an incredibly dangerous side to this. Data collection often leads to discrimination in AI technology. Algorithms that platforms use and other technology companies are really predicated on placing people into groups, giving us experiences. And that's all based on the identity crafted by these companies. So if you are Latino, Black, or another minority in some way, there has been a long line of just slow incremental wins that we are making in the civil rights space to show that discrimination is happening, that people who are Latino or Black or Native American do not get the same types of experiences that white counterparts do. And so I just sort of lay that out to say it's a mixed bag. I mean, there is incredible excitement, and yet I think there's really a lot of danger. We need guardrails in place so that AI can be something, one, that we all receive equitably, that limits and eliminates discrimination, and a kind of tool that hopefully people on the supply side can create equitably.
Thank you so much, Nora. And I think that's such a insightful way to definitely look at what this moment, right? It's not just the Soras of the world that are generating videos, but it's really what's underneath. What are some of those trade-offs? What are those big decisions? And I think that given the timing, this is why we wanted to host this for our community, because we want folks to be part of those conversations and dialogue and trade-offs as this industry continues to be evolving and shaping. And so Marlon, we'd love to get from your perspective, just being in the trenches, right? Being with the other creators, being able to, even as what you're building on, what's your take? What are some of those areas that, you've seen over the years that you're like excited about, but, to Nora's point, where are the guardrails that we need?
Yeah, absolutely. So, the really interesting thing here, and this is, not unique just to like AI, but just technology in general. Here, according to some research I'm looking at here, in 2000, 86 billion photos were taken a year, and in 2024, that number was 1.9 trillion. And so not only are we producing just more data, right, more media, but as Nora mentioned, this is all potentially used as training data, and in fact, we're running out of training data, which is interesting. We're getting into synthetic data, but just to take a quick step back, one thing that kind of grounds me is this understanding that if we are going through an industrial change, right, like this like fourth industrial revolution or however you want to call it, it's always going to come with challenges and with struggles. When we went from sharecropping systems to factories, we had to make rules about kids not working in factories. Still a problem some places in the world, but for most developed societies, that became something that had to be resolved. When cell phones came on the scene, we had to make laws against driving and talking on the phone. And so we're going to have to address, the use of data, the use of AI. We're coming up on an election this year, which is, making a lot of people nervous. So this is coming, and it's coming fast. But I can also tell you that, from my experience, working now with this like 145-year-old company, that's like quite literally under the microscope of the DOJ, like all the time. Slow and steady and ethical is not going to be the most exciting new advanced AI model out there. If you look at what's happening right now with OpenAI, with some of these music making apps, like the labels have officially sued Suno, which is a generative music making app, for basically like training their model on available music. They will say things like, oh, well, if it's available online, we've used we've trained with it. But what does that mean? That means that's like all of our stuff, right? And so we enter this conversation of, like you said, are people going to be compensated as the human resource that spawned the idea? How will they be compensated? What's fair use? And from the institutional side, like let's say like the Grammy Awards or the Oscars or something like that, they have a very big interest in making sure that the content that's being submitted for awards for consideration is human made, first of all, because it'd be weird to have like a robot walk up to the stage and get or like some like avatar pop up and you're like, thank you for the award. That would be very strange. So there are rules now where I mean, this is all stuff that's being decided now, but again, just kind of taking a step back and perhaps even giving our colleagues in this industry, some sense of reality, is that at the end of the day, like Nora said, as consumers, real recognize real. If there's media and content that speaks to our soul, speaks to our heart, that reflects a life experience that we can relate to, these are things that really only humans can produce. And so I take, if done well, I think that we're going to be entering the most creative period. And by creative, I mean just literally just things getting made, right? Because the barriers to entry to photography, DJing, video, music production, even employment and employability or access to information are just going to go away. So that's where we're at.
I love that framing, that the fact that we're in the most creative time of probably, our lifetimes, given as you all both, Nora and Marlon, mentioned, the different tools that lower barrier for access. And then, but there's also the needed literacy, right? In all of these tools, the needed understanding of what are you putting in and what happened to in all of that. And so, Pablo, I think would love to get your thoughts here as well, of being able to help us understand, especially for the startups, right? The individual creators, because I think of the opportunity here as the cost for, creating your own studio, instead of having to be a huge, investment and many years.
Yeah.
Is there an opportunity for some of more independent creatives to be a studio of one, to be a studio of three? Wondering, what are you seeing from the creatives, from an entrepreneurship perspective, and the folks that you're working with?
So to take a quick step back, in my younger days, I'm from the Bronx, New York. So in my younger days, I thought I was going to be a rapper, right? I didn't think I'd be here as an attorney or a cop or anything like that. But I say that because I'd say the late 90s, early 2000s, I was able to actually create like a studio in my house, right? With demo quality work. the way I did it was not the same barrier of entry that it is now. I had to go on LimeWire, I had to go on Napster. I couldn't afford any of that stuff. So I had to get tons of serial numbers, old equipment, figure it out, right? Drill holes in the walls, figure all of that stuff out. I have a cousin now who is in his mid-20s who is pretty much doing the same thing on his cell phone. Anywhere he goes, whatever he wants to do. So I agree with you on the barrier of entry, right? It's much lower. I think creatively, we are going to get to a place in the world, and a lot of it, unfortunately, is like the result of the trauma of COVID that we're going to need to express all of that. How do we get through that, right? So on the legal standpoint, let's get a clear understanding that the United States Copyright Office, there's 3 different pillars of intellectual property. Trademarks, which is like the name of the company, the brand, right? You protect the name and the brand of the company. There's copyright, which is the creative works of that company or yourself, right? If you're the company. And then there's patents, which protects the discoveries, the processes, right? When it comes to copyrights, this is what we mainly talk about when it comes to AI. The United States Copyright Office has came out and said that AI generated works without significant human intervention cannot be copyrighted. Copyright protection requires a human author. So, you know, like what Marlon was mentioning, like the work that the robot is going to go up, we couldn't even get there because you can't copyright that work, right? So when it comes to intellectual property, the big issue, as mentioned before, is the data that is being used to train the models, right? AI training often requires vast data, which raises privacy concerns. For example, like Stability AI was in a huge lawsuit because they were using unauthorized images for their data, right? So what I recommend to companies off the bat is definitely that to license the work that to the creators and to the people that you're actually going to input into these systems, right? For example, I'm working with MasterCard with another group of techies, because I'm not extremely technical, to create this entrepreneurship bot with MasterCard. Now, the material that's being put into that bot, they licensed my work. So I like to say it's pretty cool that like most of the work that's going to go into that bot from the intellectual property side is my brain. It's my work. I was paid for it. It's put into that. I can't do anything about it. I have no recourse. I signed an agreement. I took the money. I'm moving on, right? So definitely items like that. How does that affect like our communities, right? Well, we are a community of creators, right? I mean, you tell me who doesn't have a cousin that's not in the music industry somehow, that's not creating fashion somehow, that's not like all of us, even creative with our food, right? So having that understanding of developing clear licensing agreements to protect your intellectual property, I think that's the biggest understanding we need to have is that anything that you put into these systems, into ChatGPT, anything you put into the OpenAI models, they're gone. It's not yours anymore. So you have to be extremely careful as what we do with that. And the last thing I'll leave it, I guess, is for like, if there are any attorneys in the room here, that, you know, be extremely careful with the confidential information that you put into ChatGPT and into this work, because you can get in a lot of trouble for giving up that confidential information. And that also sticks to the business side of things. Don't put anything to confidential information. Don't put anything that into AI that you wouldn't want to be said in public.
That's right. I think that that's such a practical and really, I second what Marlon said, like super helpful, insightful to just understand, right? The different levels, and as folks are also being encouraged to use these different tools, but you know, what are you actually giving up? How do you even protect it? And especially when we think about like the monetization, right? Like the opportunities, especially for new business models. So this question for all you all on that note is, what are some of the structural changes maybe that are needed, that can help bring more opportunities, so then that way, you know, more of our communities can partake in either the upside of, you know, being able to share your art in whatever format, being able to look at different mediums, maybe new mediums or intersections of this. So just wondering from you all, what is that structural change that you would like to see? So then that way, you know, we can also just move the needle from that only 5% or less than 5% representation of Latino creatives in front and behind, even though we're, you know, our dollars are there and we want this. So anyone, feel free to jump right in.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead, Marlon. I'll go ahead after you.
Sure. Yeah. You know, one thing that I have been very curious about, and I don't know if anybody is working on this, but if so, I would like to know, is basically creating an API for yourself. If you have an incredible like model going on up here, if you got a data set right here, or let's just say, I mean, don't get me started, because I think when I just brought down a book of like graphic design from Michoacan. This is like iconic work from my home state, and I'm like, oh my God, like don't give this to Disney, don't let Disney see this, right? We need to monetize our work, our heritage, and I'm curious to see, how, because if you can say, for example, okay, sure, yeah, you can have access to like our API and our data, and it'll cost this much, just to generate content from it. I think that would change things quite a bit, because I think right now we're at a moment where if we don't pay attention, like you said, we're putting in all of our hopes, dreams, fears, goals into these models, and what will happen, I don't know, right? But history has taught us to like always advocate for consumers and for our own work in our communities.
Such a great point.
Yeah. Yeah, I wanted to jump in and say what you're mentioning, Marlon. I actually I was at a conference in New York a few weeks ago, and I ran into a model, right? So she's, beautiful, tall model, obviously, and she's what she was doing was that she was able to actually take her name, image, and likeness, create an artificial intelligence version of her, and actually license out that image to magazines. So there's magazines out there with her on the cover of it, and it's not her. She never even showed up because she was paid for. So I'm still trying to have that conversation as to how she did that, right? So the other thing that I like to mention too is that with AI, I always say it's either like, you can look at this as like the doom scenario where the Terminator is going to come knocking on your door, or you can look at it as a more opportunistic scenario and say like, well, how can I help you, Mr. Terminator, right? Like, how can I kind of figure these things out in these opportunities? What I would like to see, from my standpoint, is better policies in terms of artificial intelligence can replace jobs in content creation and customer service. So who is doing something to edit those policies to make sure that that doesn't happen, right? For example, in San Mateo County, I did some research, and there was a resolution that was passed by Ray Mueller that shows that they said that we're going to protect employees from artificial intelligence displacement. So they were ensuring jobs are going to be secure due to innovation. How do we get that training, that skill set, so that we don't lose these jobs? Because I do see that, a lot of attorneys, particularly at first, were extremely worried that we're going to lose our job due to AI, as are a lot of people. What are the policies being put in place to protect against that? That's what I'd like to see more.
Pablo, perfect question for Nora, who has been literally at the bleeding edge of all of this work. So Nora, just especially if you can just give us a little bit of like, where are we in the policy space, right? As we're looking at the federal space, there was a lot of AI policy, a lot of guardrails, some of the specific use cases. There's stuff happening at the state, but at the end of the day, it's a mixture of a lot of privacy issues, a lot of different data approaches. So wondering, to piggyback on Pablo, where are we with that accountability side? And I know, Raimundo, thank you for the question there of like, where is that accountability going to come in as well?
Yeah, well, it's a live issue right now. It's in the middle of this event. I got, I think, 13 messages about a privacy bill in Congress, for example, that's moving on the privacy side. So, I think I want to give, for various people who come to this either from entertainment or the law, it's such a thorny question to try to answer. And I think it really started with the awareness that our digital and online experiences are a great opportunity for people to access information and to engage with each other. But we've also seen that the digital world causes harm. And the baseline question that regulators and lawmakers, litigators are trying to figure out is, who's accountable and how? That question I could spend hours trying to answer for you, because on the one hand, there is an argument that tech companies should be accountable. They open up you know, whether it is social media avenues for conversation or tools for consumers, they have a duty to not harm consumers. That's one argument. There's an argument that tech companies should not be actively discriminating against consumers in ways that violate federal law or state law. But again, these are really hard types of answers to then pin down. And we're at the, as you said, Lily, the bleeding edge. You know, we're just starting to bring litigation, for example, and just starting to think about what really good legislation would look like that would get at, and I say get at because we're all trying to kind of feel around the edges of it, get at accountability. There's also a sort of another argument, which is consumers should be the ones that are accountable. They should just sort of get hip to what's happening. They should take Pablo's advice and not share private information on ChatGPT. They should get better at document or identifying disinformation. You know, our media literacy should increase. That's another argument. And I'm not saying I believe it, but you know, there's sort of there's sort of a swarm of arguments that people come to saying, well, this is how we solve the issue. But now AI has come onto the scene in a way that I think just supercharged the issue. And regulators, lawmakers here in the US have taken it as their topic du jour. You know, it's like the topic of the day. It's so hot. What are we going to do with AI? It's hurting the world. It's terrible. We have to rein it in. And so one, I would just say, whoa, whoa, whoa. Yes, we have to rein it in some ways, but there's still so little that we know. There are a few places we should start with. One of them is transparency legislation, understanding what kinds of data companies collect about us. And we need what I call data minimization laws in place, the kinds of laws that would limit how much data can be collected about us. That directly, absolutely would impact the kinds of discrimination experiences that minorities and others suffer from, and would, I think, limit the opportunity for manipulation by AI tools. There is a whole range that I will not get into of new AI-related legislation. I think one of the best examples is the watermarking issue. Should various AI tools have this watermark? And I'll just be honest, when I talk with lawmakers, it's such a novel new issue. There's low literacy even among members of Congress about this. And so without punting or shirking my own, you know, answer here, I would say we have to start with a lot of education. Other than Pablo and Marlon and Lily and myself, I think, and even me sometimes, we are grossly uneducated and undereducated about certain things. I only know corners of the AI market. I only know about these music tools because I love them. You know, I think we have to first start by helping everyday people understand, is this an existential threat? In some ways it may be, but in a lot of ways it can actually help Latinos. And so I hope that for some of this conversation, I know we're going to get into opportunity, and I want to remove the kind of incendiary nature that AI has for people, and in the entertainment industry in particular, the idea that our jobs are going away. No, your job is not going away. Someone who knows how to use technology will absolutely take your job eventually, but that's all more the reason to learn how to use these tools. So thank you, Lily. I know that was a long answer. I really am happy to dig into any of the specifics. So ask questions in the chat. I hope we can be as interactive as possible.
Yes, definitely. And thank you, Nora, for bringing that point. Just a great perspective, right, of the different moving pieces and points of view. And for the folks that are here in the chat, in the Zoom, please put in the questions in the chat, because we want to, as Nora said, like, we're here for you, because this is exactly what Nora's saying, like that education, the mainstreaming of some of these topics beyond the headlines, but also making sure that we're getting into the nuances, right? Because that's the level of skill building that we need to do as a community. And so to your point, Nora, I do believe that there's a great opportunity here for our communities to enter an economy that for a lot of times we're at the fringes, right? Especially when we look at some of the data that I mentioned at the beginning, that report that McKinsey put out of looking where they did an analysis of Latinos in Hollywood. Yet when we especially then take a look at the leaders, right? Who are the CEOs who are making those decisions? And if they're not connected to our communities, how are they even prioritizing basic budgets for marketing and outreach and legal, et cetera? And Pablo, I see you shaking your head. They're not, right? And so wondering from
They're
you,
just
what
not. That's fine.
opportunities, we'd love to have you all jump in here as well, because thinking a little bit more on like that type of leadership that we need, right? What are some of the recommendations that you all would see for either increasing the leadership in the studios, talent agencies, to the trades? We know that this is a huge complex talent sourcing, right? With a lot of different complicated contracting as well. But is there a way here that with our community, specifically Latina leaders, that we can help bring even a more equitable lens into this? We'd love to get your thoughts. How do we go from that 5% to just make it be more representative of our communities, of the 19% or 25% of the population?
Yeah. I'll quickly jump in. I wouldn't be on this panel right now if it wasn't for communities that have held space and have welcomed me, somebody that, was kind of like a non-traditional person working in tech. And so, I think what LTX, for example, is doing is absolutely exemplary, holding space, being able to like educate folks. But I think each of us has an opportunity to spread the word, pasar la voz, like I was just in El Salvador, visiting my mom recently, and showed her GPT, and also, kind of helped. We also sat down and watched the movie Her together. And I told my mom, I was like, someday, like probably soonish, like you're going to have a buddy, like there's going to be a bridge between us, where I know a lot about what's going on. You're going to have an interface to discuss. And that was kind of mind blowing. Then I showed it to my aunt. We took a picture of her medicine, of the back of her medicine, and asked GPT, like, hey, like, how do I take this medicine? Tell me more about it. Asking questions, and that curiosity, I think, is the spark that begins someone's sense of awareness in a particular space. So each one teach one, right? Or teach many.
Love it, Pablo.
Yeah, for some reason I'm thinking of so we did an event with the Bar Association earlier in the year, and we met with Assembly Member Clyde Bonnell from New York, and he used artificial. He's the first official in from my understanding, the United States to use ChatGPT to create a housing bill, right? So he actually took where we see. I kind of see on the other side of that is that in New York City specifically, I think it was the school system was like banning ChatGPT, right? I'm always of the spectrum, of the other end of the spectrum, that I want to be able to include this, incorporate this, bring it into my systems, bring it into the education system, bring it into the schools. Because if we don't start doing it, our kids are going to be left behind. If we don't start understanding it, as entrepreneurs, or we don't start understanding it as Latino people, the worst of the world is moving forward, right? Whether we like it or not. So for me, I dove headfirst into this. I have ChatGPT on my phone. I have the latest one. I'm a power user. I have it every single place you can think of. I have ChatGPT with me, right? And I say that because there is a world that we can create workforce programs, right? There is a world that we can actually learn how to use this in our everyday lives that will make it better and improve our lives. Of course, guardrails are needed, 100%. We know that for a fact. But can we focus more on providing access to ChatGPT? Can we focus more on providing access to these LLMs? Can we bring them into the school system at earlier ages in all neighborhoods in New York City, for example, and say, this is what it is. Let's learn how to use it. Let's figure it out. Let's implement to the systems. The court system in New York right now, in New York State, they just created an AI task force. So they are trying to figure out, like, how do we incorporate this into the judicial system of New York to make sure that it provides a fair representation of the community, but also that we can use it in making our systems run better, faster, stronger, right? So I think that I'm thinking that the answer that I'm giving towards this is that to run towards it, and let's figure it out together as to how we can incorporate it by providing access at earlier ages, and also providing some sort of pipeline, so that way we can go at those earlier ages and get them into the jobs that they need to get through the understanding and through the workforce programs. So it's kind of all over the place, but I think it's in the spirit of everything here that it is all over the place. So we're trying to figure it out.
I think that to your point, it's kind of what Marlon was saying, right? It's like that curiosity, especially when we think about our communities. Like Marlon was saying, like, hacemos todo en familia. So like, if the mom, the tia, the cousin, like we are the best marketers, like we're the best, like, you know, consumer reps for a lot of these different new technologies, new shows, etc. Pasamos la voz when there is trust, right? When
Yeah.
there is that opportunity to conversate. And I do think that there's a great opportunity there to really lean into the things that makes our communities unique, especially being able to have that in a way that helps inform a more community informed approach. As well. So before we open it up for all the questions here, Nor, any thoughts on this? Otherwise, we'll go and jump into the folks. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, you know, because I come at this as a lawyer, I think that the law is a really powerful tool for remedy to fix what has been harmed in some way. And there will be, and there is tremendous opportunity with AI technology and with other technologies, but there is already harm that occurs. And so when I think about the power that we have as lawyers, you know, we get tapped for being as experts, you know, to say, what do we do here? How do we create the guardrails? And we don't have enough lawyers who work on those types of issues. And so when I think about leadership, I think about myself, what I looked at when I became an attorney over a decade ago. And when I was in law school, there were no lawyers that looked like me. There were only a few other Latino law students. I went to law school in the South, and it was just a desert for Latinos, despite there being a very rich immigrant community there. And so over the years, I've looked and I've sort of kind of wondered, you know, where is the Latino leadership in law? And it's very hard to find. It definitely exists, but it is small. And so when I look out then at the frontier of digital civil rights issues, AI is one of those major topics we need to have more manpower and woman power behind. And so I founded an initiative called Build the Bench, which is an initiative that connects young Latina women who want to enter law and public service. We bring networking opportunities, job connection, frankly, just the casual private question, like, should I wear my big hoop earrings for my job interview? Is that too much of a giveaway? Is that something that's like, you know, Latina power? Do I wear my hair up? I kid you not, these are questions that Latina women want to talk about together, and we have no space in the like legal community, which is predominantly white, predominantly male, predominantly people who have come from lawyer families. And we have to upend that entire, what I call structural violence. Like, come on, more of us should look like Pablo and me. And so I'll drop more information with my LinkedIn, but I do think that one powerful tool is we need more people who look like us, who represent stories that are diverse, but also come from minority backgrounds. We need that across the board, and we really need it with technology. We can't be a user group that is extracted from without then also being one of the power brokers.
That's right. I love that moving to the power brokers, because our cultura, the creativity, the global perspective we bring to this, the multi-generational aspects. I think when we think about, you know, the power of storytelling, it's been the most powerful tool. It's the best technology there is. And then now, how can we be at the front of it? And I think our communities and our ancestors have provided us as rich examples, as Marlene, as you shared, just even how, you know, some of that art, the uniqueness of it, and the meaning. I think there's just so much that I really love what you're doing, Nora, to making sure that we're also, you know, helping the next generation be part of this. The ones that are the next, when we think about like the top of the funnel and where the largest demographic shift will happen, it is the young Latina community in the United States that keeps growing, as well as the ones that are abroad that continue to want to be connected with their community. So with that said, I know we are right at time. Well, if anyone has any other questions, feel free to drop it in. I was trying to make sure I captured if there was any other pending ones. All right, we got one more, and then after this, we'll go ahead and do a quick wrap up of what's next for everyone and how to stay connected. So, Raimundo, your question, it says, should Latino writers be worried about their jobs when talking about developing content for the entertainment industry, like writing scripts or ads? I'll let Marlene, do you want to take this
Sure. Yeah. So I come from a family of journalists. My dad, wrote for L'Opinion in Los Angeles for many years, recently retired. And what is missing, the key thing to remember is like people are not paying for news, they're paying for like culture, they're paying for a brand, hence the New York Times and how they have a sustainable business model. And so I would say like for writers and for content creators to really seek to communicate a human life experience that is relatable, that you are passionate, that you're willing to I mean, I'm not trying to get too dramatic, but really, this is our quality, our innate human quality. So yeah, so I would say definitely, look to the stories that aren't being told, because machines never going to be like, oh yeah, se me ocurrió algo.
Exacto. Definitely. And I love our dramaticness, our passion. That's one of
We're
the
passionate people, Latinos, yeah.
growing up, I remember I used to hear like, oh, too much, too much, too much. And now I'm like, yes, too much. And this is the abundance, right, that we have and the complexities and diversity. I just
Lily,
wanna
can I
get,
jump on that really quick?
oh yeah,
Can
come,
I add to
come.
that really quick? So for the questions for Raimundo, I would say I would jump on Marlon's answer and add to that by saying that think of all the stories that have not been told that AI is not going to tell. I am consistently complaining like an old man that I guess I am, that why is there not a Celia Cruz biopic? Why is there not a Roberto Clemente biopic? Why is there not a Johnny Pacheco biopic? Where is the Fania All-Stars? There's so many stories that have not been told that AI is not going to make up, AI is not going to do it. The problem is getting the studio to actually listen to you. And I agree with what Marlon is saying, that your perspective, our perspectives are of utmost importance. We bring so much to the table that if you can just lean in on that authenticity and figure it out and make sure that they listen to you, I would worry about, I would try to figure out how to do that more than worry about losing my job to AI. That's my opinion on it.
Definitely, I love it, and I think that's a really great way to do the wrap up, Pablo. With like, don't lose your authenticity and the creativity. Nora, what's your go-to words? What's the things that we want to hopes, aspirations
Ah,
in a few words?
I think let's not lose our humanity. I think of human influence as sort of the spice, and you can create a really great, very vanilla email to someone with AI, or a book. But you've got to have humans there who can really spice it up and make it unique. And so, whatever we're doing, let's not lose our humanity.
Authenticity, humanity, con sazón. And Marley, close us out.
Well, first, I just want to drop a link here of a colleague of mine, Manuel Sancilis from the island of Guadalupe, and he is doing an amazing job bringing his cultural perspective and looking at the future, almost like an Afrofuturist like vision. He has done an amazing job of sort of creating using generative AI to create characters and to develop storylines. So I'm dropping that there, but yeah, I think ultimately, we have to think of look inward and look at like what our superpowers as human beings are, and it just comes down to our ability to have life experiences, a passion to survive, a passion to provide for our loved ones, right? And all of these tools that are available here, whether they help you get a job, whether they help you make your story, are here to help to support those aspirations. Our Latinos are such ambitious people. We are very hardworking people. We quite literally have done incredible things to support our communities. And so I think these tools can only truly help. But I think to our legal colleagues here, I think it's going to be so important for us to also be on the other end and make sure that we're not abused as consumers in that sense, or as creators.
That's right. I think this is the time for the shift of the power on the business, technology, law, community, all different areas. So with that said, I just want to say thank you to each of you. Thank you, Nora, Pablo, Marlon. This was such a rich conversation, and I think just so beautiful to just also bring in, what makes the Latina community so special and unique, especially in these times. And so let the creativity and the humanity and the authenticity, con sazón, continue to drive us forward in this just really important time. So with that said, thank you all for the folks who are here on the Zoom. Thank you so much for joining us. For the folks who weren't able to join us, you get to see this replay again. So we'll continue to share the resources as well as follow up with an email just to also on the different efforts that were mentioned here as a recap in our next newsletter. And feel free to share with a friend. Pásalo a la comunidad. Hay que seguir enseñándonos and working together and all of this. So with that said, thank you all so much. Have a great rest of your day. Have a great weekend. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Adios.
Bye.